Welcome back to another edition of the Fried Egg Golf Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Johnson, and welcome to another episode of our series with golf architect Tom Doak. I was excited. I made a last-minute decision to head to Traverse City for one of our events at the Kingsley Club, and was able to catch Tom up there while I visited. So we recorded a couple episodes. This one will be out now. The second part of this conversation will be out in a couple weeks. This podcast is going to kind of center around a wide range of topics, but mostly Tom playing Sedge Valley for the first time. Then we dive into a bunch of different topics there. So this was super fun. Thanks to Tom for the time, as always, and enjoy this podcast. Before we get to Tom, let's talk about our partner, Club Champion. Club Champion is, I think, the best way to get fit for golf clubs. You go there. It's an amazing experience. From the moment you walk in the door, it is just, the studios are amazing. There are golf clubs everywhere. I think like one of the things that's super unique is, you know, you have the ability to get basically any setup you want, any type of shaft, any type of manufacturer. They have 65,000 potential hittable head and golf and shaft combinations, including like all the new stuff. I had a fitting done at a manufacturer, and that iron head that I got wasn't available at the manufacturer and was available there. They have 120 studios nationwide, so these studios are everywhere. You can find them if you're in a major metro area, and their fitters are amazing. So I would go there. It's going to get you optimized. It's going to get you playing better golf. And we have an awesome promo code. It's if you use the code Fried Egg, you'll get $100 full bag fitting or $50 for any other fitting type with a club purchase. So go to clubchampion.com, use the promo code Fried Egg, and you get a $100 full bag fitting or $50 for any other fitting. So like a fairway wood, hybrid, irons, wedges, putter, whatever it may be, with the promo code Fried Egg. Thanks to Club Champion. Let's get to Tom Doak and this discussion. What you travel so much? You've traveled so much in your life. What are your tips for Australia and New Zealand? Can you make it a trip together? What's your, people are always now, I feel like it's becoming more and more popular as more direct flights are available to these places from, all these cities. Can you do both at once?
You can. I mean, there's certainly more people going down there than there used to for golf. And you certainly can go do both. I mean, I used to stop through New Zealand a little bit, most of the time on the way to Australia, because Air New Zealand's such a great airline. And, I could fly in, stop for a day or two and go on to Australia. But, it's kind of like trying to do Scotland and Ireland on the same trip. I mean, just have faith that there's plenty to see in Australia or there's plenty to see in New Zealand, and to try to cram in both because you think you'll never go back over there is foolish. Once you go to one, you'd be like, oh, now we want to go to the other. So I would never try to put both together. I did the very first time I went. It was in the middle of building High Point. I had the winter off with nothing to do. And I went down there for over March. My birthday's in March. And I was in Australia for 3 weeks. Melbourne, Adelaide, Sydney. There wasn't anything in Tasmania to go see then. And then stopped through New Zealand for a week on the way back. And I felt like I saw most everything I wanted to see on Australia, but I felt like I didn't even scratch New Zealand. I didn't get to the South Island at all. And people in New Zealand will tell you, you're here and you're not going to the South Island? Are you stupid? That's their idea of it. You should spend all your time down there if you could.
That's in researching New Zealand, almost all the golf's on the North Island that you have to see. But then you look at the South Island and you're like, well, I want to spend like 2 weeks there playing very little golf and doing all the other stuff. It's like, I mean, it looks like just an amazing place.
Yeah. And New Zealand it's tougher to travel to because it's bigger. It's like the whole west coast of, it's like trying to see all from Vancouver all the way to San Diego or Baja on one trip. That's a big trip. And there's good little commuter flights, so you can bounce around and see some things, but nearly everything you're going to want to see is a 4-hour drive or a 6-hour drive away from the next place. And, you just spend a lot of time in the car, which is not really how you want to experience New Zealand.
I hadn't planned to ask this, but how would you prioritize regions of the UK? Like, if you were on a golf, like you wanted to see the greatest links courses in the world, is there like an order that you would go in? If you were thinking about it, if you had, think back to like, I'm 25 or I'm 30 or I'm 35. I'm really into golf architecture, but I've never been there.
Right.
How would you kind of like lay out the next 30 years of your life of like taking a trip every couple of years?
Instead of doing it all in 1 year, like I just live over there for a year. And see
you didn't win the Dreer Award. You don't get to do it all in 1 year.
Right.
You have a life, and you're just trying. Like, how would you prioritize? You need to go here, 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 here. Like, how would you? Do you think?
I'll tell you, it was a lot easier when I didn't have a life. Then I had plenty of time. I mean, for me, and I think for most people, the starter trip is go to East Lothian and St. Andrews. That's the big first step. And and then after that, probably the most popular thing now is to go north to see Dornoch and Castle Stewart and Cruden Bay and all those places. And the West Coast kind of gets overlooked a little bit now. I think that I don't think it's not really that far from St. Andrews, but if you're only going for a week or 10 days, including a weekend, I don't think I would do St. Andrews and all of East Lothian and then try to go to Prestwick and Troon on the same trip, even though it's only like a couple 3 hours to get over there. So that's one. I hadn't been back there in a long, long time until I took Brian Zager a year ago when we were over, because Prestwick had the 12-hole original course set up then, and I really wanted to see that. But it's the first time I'd been back there and walked around. First time I'd seen Turnberry in like 30 years. So that's 3 separate trips, I think.
Those are your first 3.
No, maybe not the first. I mean, to do all those before you go to Ireland at all, or before you go see anything in England, I don't know. Probably not. If you want to get a sense of the variety, you either do the north part of Ireland or the southwest part of Ireland before you crossed all of Scotland off your list, because some people enjoy Ireland more.
It's definitely a different style golf. I feel like it's just like the culture of golf's just a little different in Ireland than Scotland.
The culture of golf is a little different. The courses are different. They're not as different. The north of Scotland, Dornoch and Cruden Bay, those are a little more like Irish courses just because there's views. You get up in the dunes and you can see the water. Whereas traditional links courses, you really don't very much. And the Irish courses are the opposite. They're just spectacular. They're up in the dunes and falling off a cliff into the ocean. So, what order you do them in, I don't think it really matters that much. And then, there's a lot of little areas of England that I have not gotten back to a lot of those places at all in the last 30 years. Because I've had work in East Lothian, I've had work in Ireland, I've had work in the north of Scotland, and I just keep going back to them. But honestly, if you told me I had a week right now, I'd go back to Rye and I'd go back to West Sussex and all that stuff south of London. There's some great golf there. And I just, seems like that's the most overlooked thing to do. You said links golf. And if you're talking about links golf, that part of England is just Deal and Sandwich, maybe Princes. I don't know what they've done with it. I know they've changed Princes since I saw it, and Rye. And those are about the only links courses down there that you're going to think about seeing. But to get to do some of those and some of those Heathland courses, that's a great trip. That's like arguably as good a trip as any of those other ones that I talked about. And people do not think about that.
I think they're a little bit less promotional.
Oh, way.
Yeah.
There's an Irish golf tourist board almost. And, Scottish tourism promotes the heck out of golf. It's their main thing. And I don't even know if there's an English tourist board at all. They certainly don't promote golf in England, which is, most of those clubs will accommodate overseas visitors, but it's not their main business. It's not how they make most of their money like it is in Scotland and Ireland.
It's almost like a hybrid there of like the American and Scotland model, where you have like the clubs are a little bit more exclusive, but they still retain some playing abilities. But it's kind of like it's almost like the evolution of golf is Scottish clubs, Irish clubs to English clubs to American clubs.
Yeah, in terms of the structure, and some of it's just economics. I mean, clubs around London can charge more than £800 a year to their members without, nobody's going to complain about it down there the way they would in Scotland or Ireland. In Scotland and Ireland, they're very spoiled on never having paid a lot in greens fees. Back in the day, they subsisted on that, and the golf courses weren't in great shape, but it was fine because that's what, it only cost this much. Nobody complained about the conditions. And very importantly, you don't complain about the conditions if you play match play all the time because the other guy's doing the same exact thing. It's much different once you're keeping a card.
Yeah, that's completely true. One of the other things with England that I'm I think probably lends to the uniqueness of it is the different eras of golf design, right? You get kind of that, it would coincide a little bit with the American golden age. It probably is the golden age of their design period, but then you also have kind of the old links courses, right?
Yes. I mean, all the links courses have such a long pedigree. A place like Muirfield, Colt worked on it at one point. Simpson worked on it at one point. Old Tom Morris worked on it at one point. Not many people go there and try to pick that apart at all. It's just like, well, it's old. It's an old thing and it's evolved, and nobody would ever think on those links courses of trying to restore them to Simpson's version or Colt's version exactly. It's like, we think we've made improvements along the way. Whereas, around London are some of the only examples of like Herbert Fowler's work or Simpson's work or Colt's work that are just still pretty much their original work, and they haven't been changed very much. Is very different for over there. They don't, golf architects are not as revered, and golf architecture is not so precious to them because most golf courses have been, most links courses have been changed several times. That's just part of the deal because they were all built for hickories or for something before that even.
You just finished a couple days at Sedge Valley. You got to play Sedge for really the first time. What were your takeaways from playing the golf course, and as an architect, what do you think about when you're playing a golf course that you built for really the first time?
Well, first, shout out to Michael Kaiser, who sent the plane over to pick us up in Traverse City and go over there. It's funny, between Lido and Sedge, I drove around Lake Michigan through the UP like about 10 times over 3 years. And that's a 7.5 hour drive if you don't take a break. And
it's a pretty drive, but it's a long
pretty drive, but it's a long drive. And my body's getting older. And, last week we jumped in the plane and we were in Wisconsin Rapids in 32 minutes. And it's like, ooh, this is easy. Can't get used to this.
Maybe you could become a pilot and you could get like just a Cessna.
No, it's much easier when they just pick you up, take you, drop you off. Don't have to worry about any of the other stuff. So, it used to be when the first 10 golf courses I built, the biggest day was the first day the superintendent caught holes and we got to go play the golf course. Because usually there would be 4 of us playing and one of us going to have the course record. Might be 79, but somebody was going to have the course record. And, nowadays I'm almost never there for that. The client sneaks out with somebody to do it first so they can do it. And I'm not in town. So instead of that, it's not usually, usually I'll have gone and played the golf course once, like right about when it opens, like we did for a media day in Pinehurst this summer. But then I won't have played, that's the only time I've played Pinehurst number 10 so far, until we have the Renaissance Cup on it in November. And usually that's when all my crew gets back to see it for the first time and play it. And that's a lot of fun. But to take the whole crew to Sedge for a couple of days and just play just us was really special. And we hit it perfect weather midweek. It wasn't quite as busy as normal. So we weren't really waiting on anybody. Felt like we had it to ourselves, even though they did about 100 rounds a day for the 2 days. They spaced the tee times a little further apart this year to just, kind of throttle play a little bit because a lot of times they're putting so much traffic on fescue fairways that first year it really does a lot of damage. And I'll tell you what, the difference between 12-minute tee times instead of 10-minute tee times is you just feel like you have the course to yourself. You're not waiting on anybody. It was amazingly different. But the superintendent was like, yeah, it'd be nice if they kept it, but we've calculated that's about $1.5 million in tee times lost. Not having one more tee time every hour all season is a lot of money. So it's probably not going to stay there for very much longer, but it was great.
I'll never forget. I did a Michigan trip. This was like shortly after college, and we played, a lot of places. It was Arcadia Bluffs. I mean, this was like 2009-ish. Mm-hmm. We played up at Belvedere. And then we came back and we played, on the way back, we stopped at Harbor Shores, and they did 15-minute tee time intervals. Mm-hmm. And after 5 or 6 rounds of golf on like 10 to 8 minute intervals, mm-hmm. that 15-minute, it was insane. And it was like, well, I can't. And it's like, well, there's a drawback to that. You deliver an exceptional customer experience, but it comes at a cost.
Yeah. And if you charge, you could charge more to make the experience better, but pretty quickly after that, you'd be like, well, we could just charge more all the time.
Yeah. Well, so it's like the Pebble Beach conundrum, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, oh, they charge a lot. They charge a lot for everything on property, but people are lining up to do it.
Right.
So, what were your takeaways on the golf course? Like, I guess we could start with like the general stuff, but then I think like I'd love to hear if there were things that you weren't necessarily sure of that worked really well, or things that you might have thought didn't work great.
Well, I've been asking people all summer if they say they've gone and played it, like, how is the pace of play? I didn't realize they had the tee time spaced out as much, but we've been a little concerned from the beginning about having those, 5 through 8 on the front 9 with a lot of par 3s. And I haven't been too concerned about it because it's like, yeah, it's going to get held up somewhere, but it can't get held up everywhere. You've only got so many people out there. if I'm waiting on the 6 tee and then those guys, because I think I might drive the green and then those people go up to 7, I'm probably not going to be waiting on them there. So, and no sign of that at all. I've asked a lot of people, did they feel like it was a shorter golf course? Did they miss not having the par 5s? Never thought about it playing the golf. Didn't think about that for 1 second when I was actually playing. It's just like one good hole after another. And some of the flatter or more subtle holes that we built turn out really good. Number 2 is a great hole. Number 9 is a really cool hole when they move the pin around to different spots. The 10th green is pretty wild. 11 is a really good par 5, pretty tough hole, but there's a lot going on there.
One thing with 10 that I didn't realize until I was photographing it, and I think like one of the things I think about a lot is like everybody's always on me about like, you shouldn't be doing the drone photography. We have like 2 wonderful drone pilots, Matt and Cameron, who do a great job, but I still do a lot of droning. And one of the things that I tell people is like, if I drone and photograph a golf course, I understand it way more than if I just play it. One of my big takeaways, how amazing that it's flat and nobody would think of it as an amazing green site, but that 10th green, how it backs up on the ridge, like it abuts that ridge that's above, what is that, the 7th green? 8 green.
Yeah.
That when you move that pin back, I haven't played a back pin there. You fall off the face of the earth behind it. It's like a pretty epic like back green site. Yep. And it's like you would think of it as a flatter part of the property, but there is a really nice ridge at the back of that green when that pin's back.
Yeah, and now that you mention it, the pin was fairly far back one day, but we probably still got more trees to take out back there, so it's really more stark that you don't see anything behind it except somewhere over on the other side. But when we were building it, I thought absolutely that's part of this hole is that you have to be a little careful going into that
and
to make sure it doesn't get away
back there. Yep. It's just like a kind of like a walk. Well, it's like you're kind of like walking a plank out in the back, and I would never have thought about it based off I've played it 3 times now. I've never have thought about it until I saw it from behind.
Right. It's a little like it's like putting a hidden bunker behind a green. It's like the first 3 times you play, you don't even think about, it's like, it's not there until you hit it over the green once, which a lot of people typically the average golfer is, planning on hitting their 5-iron 180 yards and it goes 165 and they never see what's behind the green.
Yeah. So the flatter holes, I agree with 11. And then what else did you think?
We all played 12 so bad the first day, and they told us people lose a lot of balls on the right, and yeah, and we did too the first day. It's because it's hard to see much of the left side of the hole and see that there's a lot of room up there, and some of it's just there's a lot of like quote unquote native stuff and weeds growing up right at the edge from the native to the fairways. So we're gonna like thin that out and cut it back, but it's hard to see. You don't see much over there, and then you see even less, and there's some gnarly grass around the edge. So you're like, you just start looking at the flag and then hit your usual left to right ball and wind up down in the crap along the right hand side. But then the second day I hit a really good tee shot, and I was like, they had the pin back on that last shelf, and I was up on the shoulder on the left, and the shoulder on the left, was too much on my line to play off that shoulder and down in and get it within 20 feet. And I'm looking at the green, like I spent a long time looking at it, and then I tried to chip to the right. Like there's a little slot between where the back plateau comes up and the little thing on the right, and I got it just in the perfect spot, and it made about a hairpin turn off of that and came back and like missed the hole by that. And the caddy was like, I'm going to have to spend more time chipping around these greens. It was like, I didn't think you could get that within 20 feet. I was like, I wasn't sure I could either, but that was fun.
I love that 12th hole. One of the things I like about it is how left, if you hit it green distance, like you kind of run out of real estate left where it can run into the native.
Yeah.
But I just love that shot from left. You can hit so many different shots. You can look at the bank on the right, play it back depending on those. But that running shot that kind of like uses the slope is such a fun shot to hit. That it's just such a neat little ridge. I always think about what you said. It might have been like the third or fourth episode of this podcast with us talking, but you said, I wish that we could have a sign on contours that said, if you're reading this, you're in the wrong spot, because left there feels like that, depending on the pin, but left there, like you're like, oh, this is a little bit of a spot of bother, versus like if you're right of it, on a lot of those, you have that ridge that just funnels the ball back in.
Yeah. And I just enjoy playing those shots. A lot of people talk about drivable par fours, and that they're playing that hole like 270 yards, and I don't even think we were playing it at 250 the day we played. But it's still like it's a really skinny target. Not that many people will hit it on the green, but I like, instead of what they used to call a drive and pitch hole, or a drivable hole, I've got this thing in between. It's like a drive and chip, and I do it on par fives too. It's like if you can get the second shot up there close, I just want to get it close enough up there to the green, like within 40 yards, I'm chipping that instead of, I don't have 5 wedges in my bag. I'm still carrying 8 clubs in my bag, but I love those kind of shots, and there's lots of that in links golf. There's lots of that on a bunch of my courses that are, the fairways are tight and there's a lot of short grass around the greens, and you can do it. I don't see holes like that very many other places.
I think that's like one of the things that I feel like as a golf course architecture society, I think this is honestly, I think I might blame it on the 10th hole at Riviera and how popular it's become over the last 15 years on television, and maybe 10 years on television. And like the idea of a drivable par 4 has become like, it almost feels like people like need it to be drivable. But oftentimes I find the most enjoyment, the most mental stimulation when it's extraordinarily difficult to drive it. Like it's almost impossible. And it's more about, where do I want to place this ball? Do I want to push it up? Because like the common statistical belief is get it as close as possible. But there are some really clever designed drive and pitch holes where getting it close as possible is not always the right idea.
Right. I mean, one of my good friends says the key to your short par 4s is never go for it at all. No matter how much I am tempted, don't do that. That won't work out. And it's not necessarily that I'm deliberately doing that, but usually when I'm like dangling the carrot, like, okay, you could drive this. It's like, but there's trouble if you try. And to your point, I mean, everybody talks about the 10th at Riviera being a drivable par 4. It's not a drivable, but
it's impossible.
It's exactly the drive and chip hole that I just talked about. I mean, is there like 1 or 2 guys in 4 days at the tournament that actually hit a ball that stays on the green? It's almost impossible.
They just roll onto the front. It's not like they can get everywhere on the green. Right. It just like trickles onto the front.
And
part.
Not many do that either.
Yeah, very few.
They're all aiming like 20 yards left, and if they hit one on the front, it's a mistake.
They're aiming at the bushes on the left and hoping they don't hit it where they're aiming.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I talk with people now, back in the day, a short par 4 was like a 360-yard drive-in pitch hole. I talk with people now, they ask if I have any short par fours, and they think a short par four is a drivable par four, like there's no other kind.
Yeah, that's what I kind of am like amazed about. It's like we have 3 drivable par fours. It's like, well, what if like you had 1 drivable one that you could really drive, and like 2 that are like you have to think about what you're doing, and sure, you could push it up and maybe in the right conditions get there, but really the thought is like, do I want to leave this at like 120? Do I want to push it up to 60? Do I want to push it up to 80 yards? Like, where do I want to leave this, and what part of the fairway do I want to leave this on? Because like one of the beauties of like, to me, that's missing in just it's not missing, this is the wrong word, but like it's almost like the characterization has become this drivable thing, is like the idea, like I kind of like the idea of like you're hitting a 4-iron, and then you as an architect can demand a certain precision where it almost becomes like I'm playing a long par 3 to a short par 3. Like my landing area is like hitting a long par 3 shot. Right. And then it's a short par 3 from a perfect angle.
Like I used to play, like I still try to play 17 at Crystal Downs. I mean, I never think about hitting driver up there. I'm not long enough to even think about that, because if you don't get it all the way up there, it's going to roll back 40 or 50 yards. So, but yeah, I used to play that 200-yard shot, 100-yard shot. And they both had to be really good shots, or you'd make 6, but you don't see a lot of holes like that almost encourage you to hit an iron off the tee instead of driver. And of course, a lot of our clients don't want anything that tight. Going to be too many lost balls, or it's going to slow down play too much. So can we just make it a little wider? And we do. And Sedge Valley has 3 drivable par 4s. Like seriously, where a plus handicap guy does have a chance to hit it on all 3 of those greens. But I feel like the holes are pretty different. 6 is, you've got kind of a, there's a lot of fairway there, but there's only kind of a circle in the left center of it that gives you a nice easy shot into the green.
It's a hard one. I thought I pulled it off, and then I was in the left bunker. I'll tell everybody, you don't want to be in the left bunker because it's like this, and you got a downhill bunker shot to this extraordinarily narrow green. I was like, I don't know if I can even hit this on the green.
Yeah, and it's like I try to do that as much as I can. Okay, you thought you were going to drive the green, and you were not close, so now you have a 50-yard bunker shot. It's like the one thing that most people are like, don't ever give me that. And then 12, you can drive it in that little pop bunker and not even be able to get to the green. And that is a very skinny one too. And that one is like, you don't, to me, it's skinny in a different way. It's like, you can use the slopes around it, but you also don't, the closer you drive it to it, the harder it is to use those slopes, because now you're at the wrong angle and the pin is on the same side of the thing as you are. And now you're going to have to be really clever to play it off a bank on the other side or something in order to get it close. And then 18, a little longer than the other 2. You got to carry it a long way if you're going to do that. I mean, unless you're playing down, I guess a lot of people play that from down below, and it is easy to drive if you're there. But from the real tee, it's like, no, that's too much carry for me. But again, the shape of that green makes me think about, where should I go? I played left there 2 days because that's the way I play the hole at Barnbougle most of the time, and I wanted to see if it played the same. My crew were, Eric's trying to hit driver up there over the shoulder close, and the other guys are like down in front of the big bunker and just hitting, it's a blind shot in, but it's a better angle to the back pin.
I like that hole with the back pin. What I think is cool about it is you can hit an almost perfect driver. I've done this. I've had that back pin twice, where I hit what I thought was a perfect driver, and I ended up on the front part of the green.
Finish left, yeah.
And then the next time I remembered that, and I just like shaded 5 yards left of where I hit it the first time, and I pulled it off, and I ended up with like but like the idea of accomplishing it but not being done because it wasn't quite perfect.
Right.
Like
you made the carry, you thought that was great, and you still left yourself a really hard
and you're like,
shot.
wait a second, like do I chip this? Like, do I putt this? I'm on the green. Like I think that's like one of the other things that frustrates me a little bit with a lot of like modern ideology around golf is like the idea of like, if I've hit the green, I deserve to be able to easily two-putt. It's like, well, no, you didn't hit the right part of the green,
Right. Right. And so the one thing that's different about that hole from the fourth at Barnbougle is it's about 20 yards longer. And, Barnbougle, you're always playing, 90% of the time you play there, you're playing into a 20-mile-an-hour wind. And Sedge Valley, the wind can be behind you. It can be from the left. But it wasn't going to play consistently longer. So we thought, okay, we have to, we were using the LiDAR data to get the bones of the hole in. But, we did, the one thing we didn't want to do was make it, if it was the same length, it would have been too easy to drive. So, we struggled with, well, where do we put that 20 yards in? Because if we keep all the green complex and all the fairway the same, and we just have the tee 20 yards further back, it's going to be a 20 yard more carry to get over the bunker. And I was like, I don't know about that. That's going to make the carry like really hard for guys. So we actually put it in kind of between the green and the bunker. There's a little more of a space there. And that's the extra slope that kicks your ball to the left if you don't get it all. You can get it past the bunker, but you still didn't get it to the part where it goes down into the right side of the green. And everything just kind of feeds left instead. So at Barnbougle, if you get a day where it's not real windy and you can drive it, it's more receptive up there. But most days you don't even think about trying to hit that shot because there's so much trouble right.
It's a fascinating, we just talked about this with the drive and pitch hole versus the drivable. To me, it's almost more fascinating for a strong player when you can't quite get there, what you do. Mm-hmm. Because it's like right, left. Like to be completely honest, I have never even looked. I've had people tell me left is the way to play, and I just like when I'm playing golf, I don't even look at left. Like it is just I'm going to hit it at the green. But like if I played into the wind, like all of a sudden that all the bunkers and that right side, how it kind of moves on an angle. Like I think about the right side and the angle of that and how I cannot bail, like it almost helps me that I can't bail with the right, the way it is, that it makes me be more committed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if I was playing into headwind, then all of a sudden I would look like it's again, like, or I'd love to go play it with like a hickory set and that hole becomes alive, and it kind of talks to the topic we were just discussing. Like, I think that hole is actually more compelling for a shorter hitter.
Yeah. And it's not, for a shorter hitter. I mean, part of the great thing about having short par fours is they can be tricky for a good player, and they're very straightforward for a shorter hitter. Like, one of the best short par fours I've ever built is 6 hole at Pacific Dunes. And I
love that hole.
All of the really good players I know, if you ask them what hole at Pacific Dunes are you afraid of, it's that one.
Yeah. The green's just so small.
It's such a skinny target, but you're actually thinking about driving the green. I went and watched the Curtis Cup there. None of them are thinking about driving the green. And it was a very straightforward drive and pitch hole for them. And they hit pitch shots straight. So that was no problem at all. And somebody always made 3 in those matches. It was kind of crazy. Just like, okay, you take out the temptation part, and this is a very simple hole. So it's the same with the 18th at Sedge Valley. Like if you can't go for it, you can think really hard about, should I go left? Should I go right? If you're not afraid of a blind pitch, it's just like hitting it short of the bunker and hitting a blind pitch into a big bowl is definitely the way to go. You make 4 there like 90% of the time.
That's the thing. The amazing thing about the hole is like you're offering someone a short wedge shot into a bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the things that to me, one of the great ingredients of a short par 4 is when you offer someone something extraordinarily enticing, like a really good player, something extraordinarily enticing if they pass up the temptation of going for it. Where it's like, I'm giving you a wedge, like a lot of cases, like it's even just like, I'm giving you a wedge. A lot of courses you work on have great topography, a wedge from a flat lie. Like to me, that's like the interesting thing with the way the pros now play 3 at Augusta National is that they all drive it into that gully short of the 3rd green. And then they have this pitch up,
right,
25 feet to a green that kind of runs away. And it's like, if you just lay back on the ridge, it is maybe the only time outside of a par 3 at Augusta National that you get a dead flat lie. And the only time that you have a short wedge in your hand with a dead flat lie. Like that, it's just something you never get there. Yep. And it's kind of amazing to me how the evolution of analytics has led to this. Like, and you watch some of the guys that have played there forever. I remember like up until till he's not exempt anymore, but Lee Westwood, just like everybody's bombing it down there. He's still hitting the iron to the top of the hill. And you see the older guys still believe in that mentality. But analytics has really changed where they push it down into this very undesirable place.
Right. But, those analytics are general.
Yes.
And I don't know if they're, they need to look at their scoring average on that hole because I don't think it's doing them any favors. I see a lot of guys messing that hole up every year.
It's a fascinating thing about this analytics. It's like, there's been this, and I believe, like, I'm a big believer of like analytics is like what it's done for like accelerating the golf IQ of young golfers is like extraordinary. Like stuff that I learned when I was 27 after almost 20 years of competitive golf. I had light bulb moments in my late 20s. Like these kids are learning at age 16.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's the value. But so much of the analytics is based off of golf played on golf courses with like, and I don't want to, but like pretty run of the mill design in conditions that do not have, implications for where you miss, where being 20 yards out.
Yeah, the whole fairway is flat. So it doesn't matter which part you hit it to, you're going to have a flat lie instead of like, no, I got to get it there. And 30 yards further up, it's not flat anymore, and that's harder.
Or what I think Eric Iverson said in an early podcast that we did from Bel Air. He said, my first day on the site with Tom, he said, I was supposed to build a green, and he said, build me a green that when you're on one side of the fairway looks completely different than the other side. A lot of golf courses, if you go from right side of the fairway to the left side of the fairway, it looks the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it looks different, that presents like a completely different situation, which are going to have drastically different analytics and results from.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that you're right. The analytics are just, it also seems to me that, even analytics that just digest everything off the PGA Tour, that's all the guys playing good, bad, and indifferent all week instead of like, when you're in one of the last groups on Sunday and you're playing as good as you ever can, you can take more chances. Your window has gotten smaller that you're going to hit your circle that you're going to hit that ball in is smaller because you're right on your game. And some of them don't play like that.
Yes.
Whereas, Tiger Woods, he understood all that, but when he was playing good, it's like, yeah, I'm going to hit a little fade into that and make it skip once and stop. That's not on the analytics thing at all. But, he knew he was playing. He knew he was comfortable with that shot.
That's the thing is like your performance, you have statistical variance of your own.
Right.
And understanding where you are, I think that's like you look at what sabermetrics in baseball, where they were 20 years ago when like the Moneyball A's were, revolutionizing the sport, to then it became a common adopted practice. Everybody's using these statistics. And then there's now a next level of statistical analysis that has gone way past where it was 25 years ago. I think golf, like we are on the baseline of like understanding statistics because like, and I think like some of the players are like starting to like, they have their own they understand that their statistical profile is way different than the paint by number.
It's very much like, the part of baseball that relates to is like the pitching coaches now. They're like, don't throw the slider anymore, that you're getting killed with the slider, develop another pitch and use, make this pitch better, stick with that fastball, don't try the other fastball, and then don't be throwing this except as a throwaway thing. You're getting killed on that. And that's, golfers need that level because that's really changed some pitchers. So, you see pitchers go to Houston and all of a sudden it's like they pitch a new way and they're better.
It's, I think all sports are seeing this. Like there's like a whole revolt with the NFL this year because the defenses have finally adapted and are like game scoring's down because the defenses finally caught up to the offenses. And now again, it's on the offenses to adapt again and do something that spites the defense. And I think that's the unique aspect of golf that doesn't get talked about enough. Like the defense against golfers is golf architecture.
Yeah. And it's hard to, I thought about that a lot when we were working in Houston, but the offense of what I understood, I tried to understand the analytics, but it seemed so boilerplate that it was like there wasn't much you could do with the defense that was going to change how they thought about the hole or how they played the hole. And, I've been trying to do things for years that get good players to think about it more and see something either that scares them or tempts them into doing not what the analytics say. If they just stick to what the analytics say, hit it 32 yards away from that bunker, that's what they're going to do. And to me, it's kind of sad. Like when we rebuilt that 17th hole in Houston last year, it's like, okay, I know where the edge of the water is. I'm going to make a green that's about, fairly skinny. So if you miss it left, pin high, that's the worst place. So you've got the green a little bit off the water, and then you've got the green about 18 yards wide. And then you realize very fast, well, they're going to be aiming 10 yards left of this green. The guy that actually hits the ball on the green probably wasn't aiming there. It's just a bad shot. They're all going to be aiming left of the thing because that's what the analytics tell them to do. And then I guess it's whoever, hits the least, they throw the analytics pretty much out the window when you've got a wedge in your hand from 15, 20 yards off the green. It's really boiling down to execution there. But I did, when I was in Scotland this summer to walk around the Renaissance Club, the they're having meetings with the PGA Tour guys about, they've got one more year on the contract to have the Scottish Open right now. They'd like to host that long term. I think the tours would like it to stay there so they don't have to, some people think the Scottish Open should be all over Scotland, and I get that, but from the player standpoint, and especially from the tourist standpoint, it's like going somewhere different every year is hard, and it's so much more work for them to put together. It's much easier if they're staying at the same place year after year.
Don't forget the sponsors. That's another aspect. They know exactly what their chalet is going to look like, how they can craft their experience for the
I suppose, some sponsor, it's not always the sponsor rolls over every few years, and sometimes they got a different idea of where it should be or what they want too. Yeah. But we've been talking about changes there. It's much harder than it is at Augusta because the Scottish Open is right in the middle of a short growing season in Scotland. You cannot tear up a green the week after the tournament and get it back into perfect shape. You can't even tell it's different by the next tournament. It just won't happen. So we really can't do much with changing the greens. We can do everything else, but most of it's window dressing. You put in a new bunker, and you look at the ShotLink stuff at the end of the tournament, it's like 3 guys hit it in that bunker in 72 holes with 150 guys. It's like, so really it's more about, you're hopefully you're changing how they're thinking about the hole and where they're trying to hit it, the bunker is there. It's not that the bunker is actually going to catch them that much. But, Padraig said something to me that just, I guess I sort of understood it, but it hadn't really registered yet. So one of the things we changed 2 or 3 years ago, we put in a new fairway bunker on the right of the first hole. It's about 300 yards off the tee. It's tight over there. If you aim away from it, you're bringing the tree that's to the left and short of the green into play. And, we're making them decide which one of those two things is going to be in play for them. So between the to the right of the bunker, there is about 20 yards of rough that's not very thick. And then outside of that, there's some trees and then a couple of gorse bushes. And it's so nobody's ever going to hit it to the right of the bunker deliberately. It's not near big enough to aim there. But, Padraig said the guys complain a lot that, their playing partner or opponent gets away with missing there. They don't have a problem with hitting it. If they hit it in the bunker, they don't have a problem with that because they knew it was there and they should have kept away from it. But what really bothers them if somebody misses a little more and it doesn't go in a bunker and they get away with it. It's like, for a tour pros mentality, it's like everything between that bunker and the gorse should be more bunkers and deeper rough and just something. So you never get away with
the scale of it has to get more difficult the worse the shot is.
Right.
And that's what fair is.
And they all understand that wouldn't work for the members any other week, but it still just riles them up that, I was aiming over here and the other guy was aiming over here and he hit one way wide and he got away with it.
Yeah. Nothing bothers someone like that, a tour pro, more than that. I think an interesting discussion about golf analytics is that all the analytics are based in the idea of stroke play. And all the numbers, the decisions are based out of fear of what double, triple, quadruples, or even bogeys will do to your 72-hole score, 54-hole score, or 30, whatever the scale of the tournament is, what that impact will do. So all of this analytical system is based off numbers in the set. Now, if the PGA Tour was a match play tour where you played match play tournaments, it would completely spin how the analytics work. It would be completely flipped on its head, and all of a sudden, the thing that would have way more relevance would be golf architecture, and you'd see way more attempts at heroic shots. That line, I think conceivably your line on 17 in Houston would shade way more aggressive if the penalty for a triple bogey was simply a loss of hole.
Yes. And
that's like the interesting discussion about analytics is like these systems are based off of the existing rules. And by the tour or in amateur golf primarily being a stroke play pursuit in America.
Right.
The analytics and the strategy behind playing golf is dramatically different than if it was a match play system.
And dramatically different than like how people play everyday golf in Scotland.
Yes.
You throw those analytics out because that's not the same. And yeah, I mean, if in match play, the analytics would be much more like playing poker. Like as soon as you know what the other guy, the odds change completely with what the other guy's cards are. And you have to be able to figure out in your head, well, okay, now that he's done that, does it still make sense for me to go 20 yards left of the screen? Or, numbers wise, is that not going to work out? And I really need to try to hit it on the green or I'm going to lose the hole anyway.
Yeah. I think to me, that's where the amount, I think we're at this information age with golf and golf courses. Like you think about rangefinders, pin sheets, like all these things that you give people to me, what happens and like, we're never going back to where we lose this information. But like sometimes golf courses, like what I love, like I hate big flags. I hate them for punch bowls, especially if it's a golf course.
You mean
like
the tall flag?
Tall flag.
Yeah.
Like, especially if it's a golf course where if I walk past that green playing a previous hole, to me, a really smart player is going to look and see where that hole is, and they're going to put it away in their memory bank for when they come back around and play the hole. Like, to me, that is like some of the advantages and to me, match play at this point in golf is really the thinking. Like, if you want the most intricate experience of playing golf, what analytics has done is it has created a framework to play stroke play golf. And a lot of that framework works for match play, but match play turns alive that reactionary experience to what your opponent's doing. Everybody says play your own style, like play the way, but it's impossible to ignore. And it just amplifies the intricacies of golf course architecture.
And at the end of the day, I mean, the analytics are play boring golf.
Yeah.
Hit it to the middle of the green, aim away from the hazard, just don't take any chances. Because you're good. So why take any chances? You can just not play for the hole and still make 4 birdies around because you're that good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's like so much for the best players. It's like avoid mistakes and you are going to just run into 4 or 5 birdies around. Mm-hmm. Like that is the general belief of men's professional golf at this point. Let's get back. We got very off topic. Sedge.
Sorry.
No, me too. Sedge, what is one hole from playing it that just really, I guess, like spoke to you, like that you really loved that the way it played out, that you previously weren't thinking that much about, just based off of playing, from designing on paper into the ground, that then playing it, you were like, I really like this one.
You said on paper, like you thought I had it all figured out on paper, which some holes more than others.
Well, it's the metamorphosis of it.
5 was a last minute idea, kind of off paper. And, we saw a pin to the left and we saw a pin to the right. And I got up first in our matches on both those holes. And I just played for the backboard on the greens both times. I think the hardest pin there is the one in the middle of the V. It's like if you go through it all, you either have to stop it on a dime or you're going in the back bunker, and that's really hard. But I thought that's a really good little hole. the shots around, if you miss the shots to get it close, they're not severe. You can even putt pretty well from one side of the green to the other, but trying to make 3 off a miss is pretty hard. And it's such a short hole. It's like, oh, this should be so easy, but for me, it's like, well, I'm just going to hit it to the correct half of the V and go from there. And 13, the par 3 with the really big green is kind of the opposite. That was the one that I always like, that doesn't really fit in with the rest of the golf course so much. It was just a big flat area, and we were trying to figure out something to do with it that would tie it together, tie that green and 14T in with 11 going past them back beyond there, because it was just like they were a little too close to have any like native stuff in there that meant anything, and a little too far to just be like, you can't have them in play off of 14T or off of 11T. So 13 has like 5 like wildly different hole locations. There's a little hole location front left that you've got to like use the slope behind it to stop it. There's a little hole location front right behind the mounds where you really want to land just short and left and have it feed off the little contour to the right to get over there. There's the shelf on the left, which you can use the bank to the left a little bit. There's the stuff down off the shelf to the left that you all of a sudden you can't really play it in left to right. It's either going to get stuck up there or go pretty far past. And there's almost a hidden pin to the right. We only saw 2 of them. I think that's a hole that like the first time you play the golf course, it's like, yeah, that didn't really fit in. I think you'd have to play that course a bunch to go like, wow, this is really different from one day to another. But it seemed like it was going to work that way. And I think it probably won't be appreciated that much by the first time player, but hopefully eventually people see it enough to go, okay, this is not, you got to hit different kinds of, you got to approach this different on different days.
On that topic, like playing it a lot, do you ever wish some of your resort courses were like private clubs or daily fee courses that people played regularly, that were like every day? And if there are there one or two that jump to mind that you would love to have seen that golf course be a everyday course for the majority of the customers?
I mean, the reason I do like that experience is because people get to know the golf course a lot better and appreciate the subtlety. And, I get better feedback at a members club because the members get to know it well enough to know, you thought that playing out left there would be a good thing, but we keep trying that and it just doesn't work. And, on a resort course, you never figure it out. You just, people only play it once or twice and they give up on it, or it works out perfect for them and they think they're a genius,
or they say it's unfair.
We were talking about that at High Point the other day. High Point was kind of in between. I mean, it wasn't like Sand Valley or Bandon that at best people would go once a year. I mean, when it was a public golf course, they used to, there were a lot of locals that played it half regularly. But the shots like putting up to the back of 13 green to get it to come down to the left side, these members will get to know that a lot better than most people used to just seeing it if they came up here once a year on vacation. So really, yeah, I mean, for Pacific Dunes or Barnbougle to be things that people played on a weekly basis, those would be a lot of fun. I think they'd probably be that much more appreciated, even though, as I've said many times on this podcast before, it's great for my career that those were public because they get so much more press and PR free because the readers can go there.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I think that's like one of the things that's, this era of design might grapple with is like the economics of public golf are just so cumbersome at this point for like new public golf outside of just resorts,
very high end resorts.
It's like the only, like the idea, and I've said this to so many people ask me that it's just like, how can you overcome $20 million? Like, or $15 million with like the payback period is just so long that we're just going to like the market has, you know, gone a certain way until there's a big change in how expectations. The only way it changes if there's like a huge change in customer expectation for a really good, for what's considered a really good, affordable public golf course.
Mm-hmm. I think that's always been kind of true. I mean, some of the courses you highlight as the great public golf courses in America and the great muni courses in America were built as private clubs in the 1920s and went bankrupt immediately and became public golf courses. They weren't built as public golf courses. I mean, I hear from people all the time, oh, is that going to be another high-end private golf club? And it's like, or another $250 resort course. And it's like, you know, there was a rule of thumb when I got into the business, and I don't know why it would have changed, that for every $1 million you spent building a golf course, that was going to be $1 on the green, or $10 on the green fee. So if it costs $20 million to develop a new golf course, it's a $200 green fee is how that's going to work one way or another, whether it's private or resort. That's the average of what they're going to have to get in order to make that work. And, you know, that's maybe not true if you're in a place where you could play 40 or 50,000 rounds a year, but most places where it's 6 or 8 month season, that's how it has to work.
The place that you can play 40, 50,000 rounds a year reliably is California.
And there's other reasons why it's expensive there.
I think the only other relatively unexplored model in American golf that has public access is the membership, that the UK kind of model that has some sort of downstroke in membership that allows a quicker payback. That's the only one to me that really can get that public model out there with new builds, but it is like a hybrid.
Like Lido, you mean?
Yeah.
Where it's a club, but there's also outside play.
So you get you recoup, you're not out $20 million or $15 million. Right. You recoup 5 or 10 of it, and then you pay it back. Like, to me, when you think about the economics of it, like, to me, that's the only, but then you're still talking high end. Like, you're not going to have a membership and be like, yeah, we're charging $75 when we open it up to the public.
No, probably not.
So it's hard. I think the best public affordable golf opportunities, as you've said numerous times, it's the second or third ownership of a property.
Well, you know, I was just on a podcast for Golf Magazine the other day with Bill Coore and Rob Collins and Andrew Green about the rankings and what we all thought of the rankings as a general thing and whether it was good or bad. And I said, you know, to me, the worst thing about them is it's like a price list for, you know, if your golf course is 50th in the rankings and you're only charging $100, you're an idiot. And, you know, look around you. It should be 250, so that, you know, there is no bargains left, or there's almost no bargains left. I think the only course in the top 50 or 60 in the world that is not a $300 golf course is Barnbougle, because they don't think Australia, you know, that's 90% Australians coming from Melbourne and Sydney, and they're not used to paying $300 to play golf. And so it's about half that.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. It's like, and there's also the flip side of that is like they've seen this all over the UK. Because nobody came when we were $50, and then we marked it up to $200.
Yes.
And now we're booked out.
But there's got to be a ranking behind
course.
that.
There's the same exact
It is,
golf
but
course.
there's a ranking behind it. If it wasn't for that, if you were trying to charge 200 and you weren't ranked in the top 53 affordable public courses in England, you wouldn't be able to charge as much. I mean, it's funny, like all the magazines they think they're trying to do their best to rank affordable public courses. They're just driving up the price. It's like, if we're number 5 in the affordable, we shouldn't be affordable anymore by their definition. We could raise the green fee.
That's why I really respect places like Lawsonia's had some price increase, but they are committed to being affordable. Like it is like, and I think like there's something about like the facilities that it's in their like DNA. Like to me, like we like revere so much in golf architecture, these golf courses that are, have 10,000 rounds and amazing architecture that's maintained perfectly. They are amazing, but like the ones that will always stand out to me as like the toughest feat in golf anywhere is affordable golf with exceptional architecture and presentation,
Right.
Like those are the true unicorns. Like with money and especially now with like where modern architecture has gotten, I think you can achieve a really high bar of golf architecture and presentation, but very few can do it at an affordable rate, open to the public with like the demands of like, you can't make improvements because you have a tee sheet that's sold out.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, all of us in the golf business are a little guilty of that too. We want to make more money.
Yeah.
We want to, I question a lot why we need 3 rows of irrigation or 4 rows of irrigation or whatever instead of the places that used to have 1. But it usually falls on deaf ears. It's like if we didn't have that, we could charge less, and the client is thinking, if we had that, we could charge more.
Yep. It's very true. All right. Tying the knot on Sedge as we've gone all over the place. I don't think you're going to reprint the northern destinations of the confidential guide anytime soon.
I'm not going to rewrite it. No. So that's probably not going to be in there.
What would be the Doak score of Sedge?
Ooh. I don't know yet. I mean, I was there last week. I feel like trying to give a score to a golf course is like, give me 3 or 4 months and let me see how I feel about it then. But, a lot of those courses that it was kind of inspired by in England, there are 7s and 8s on the Doak scale. Occasionally a 9, but mostly they're 7 and 8s. It fits right in there. I mean, it does fit right in there with those. And, arguably, I mean, there's more detail to it. Those greens are really cool. They're so different than High Point's greens. I thought of the 2 properties as pretty similar, and I've been playing High Point all summer, and then I go over there for a couple of days, and I'm like, wow, these are really different. Different guys building them, and a little less elevation change right around the greens there. It really did make it different.
I think there's so much aesthetic similarity between High Point, it's down to like the surrounding, the flora and fauna.
Even though it's very different. Like the native stuff at Sedge Valley is actually almost completely different than what's growing at High Point. It has the same general look, and it gets the same weather, so it browns out in the summer and it gets thick if it rains a lot in the spring. But it's different plants.
Yeah. It's cool. Similar, as you said, 32 minutes, and probably almost similar, exactly the same on the latitude. I always get those confused. Longitude and latitude. All right. This does it for episode 1. We'll have a couple more of these coming, but we're going to switch topics here. Thanks, Tom.
All right.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fried Egg Golf Podcast. We will be back next week. I'm excited about what we got coming down the pipe. Big thanks to PJ Clark for editing and producing this podcast. And hey, if you like nitty-gritty conversations about golf courses and golf architecture, if you like this episode, I think you'd really like our membership, Club TFE. Club TFE is $120 a year and really focuses on golf architecture right now. We're going to add a bunch of features to this membership over time. But we have a weekly course profile that goes up, in-depth look at a golf course. We have design notebook, which, really Garrett puts together. It's an awesome weekly feature that dives into all the latest design news. And it's a great way to support us. It also gives you early access to our events, access to member only events. We had a couple come out this week that are pretty cool, if I do say so myself. And it's a great way to support what we do. It helps us grow. It helps us continue to cover the game the way we want to cover the game. So check it out at thefriedegg.com/membership. It's $120 a year. And I think people have really enjoyed it. So big thanks to all the members out there. And if you aren't, we'd love you to consider joining and becoming part of our community in Club TFE. Thanks. And we will be back next week with more episodes of the Fried Egg Golf Podcast.